I was sitting in the waiting room at Seattle General Hospital, my daughter Sarah beside me, scrolling through her phone, when the psychiatrist walked past and dropped her clipboard. As she bent to pick it up, she leaned close and whispered so quietly, I almost missed it. Don't sign anything today. Tell them you need to think about it. Then she was gone, disappearing down the hallway before I could even process what she'd said. Sarah looked up from her phone. What did she say to you? Nothing, I replied, my heart suddenly pounding. Just apologized for the wait. But my mind was racing. Why would a doctor I'd never met tell me not to sign anything? What was I supposed to be signing? I glanced at Sarah, who'd already returned to her phone, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the screen. She'd been the one who insisted on this appointment, claiming I'd been forgetting things and acting confused. My name is Robert Harrison. I'm 64 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a good relationship with my youngest daughter. I'm a retired mechanical engineer, spent 40 years designing components for Boeing. My wife Helen passed away from cancer 2 years ago. It was brutal watching her fade. We'd been married for 38 years. After Helen died, I sold our house in Bellevue. Too many memories, too many rooms for one person. The place sold for $900,000, and I bought a smaller condo in Capitol Hill for cash, about $400,000. I kept the rest invested. Helen and I had saved carefully our whole lives. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. I have 2 daughters. Emily, my oldest, is 40. She's a high school math teacher in Portland, married to a good man named Tom. They have 2 kids I don't see nearly enough. Emily's always been independent, never asked me for anything. After Helen died, she called every week just to check in, never pushing, never demanding. Then there's Sarah, 32, unmarried, works as a marketing coordinator at some tech startup. After Helen's funeral, Sarah suggested I move in with her. You shouldn't be alone, Dad, she'd said, tears in her eyes. Mom would want us to stick together. I was touched. Sarah had always been more distant than Emily, but grief changes people. I thought maybe losing her mother had made her realize what family meant. So I moved into her apartment in Fremont. She had a spare bedroom, and I helped with rent, groceries, utilities. It seemed like a fair arrangement. For the first month, everything was fine. Sarah cooked dinner a few times. We watched movies together. She asked about my engineering work, seemed genuinely interested in my stories. I started to think this was the fresh start we both needed. Then Marcus entered the picture. I came home one evening to find a man I'd never met sitting on my couch, drinking my beer. Oh, Dad, this is Marcus, Sarah said casually. My boyfriend. He's going to be staying over more often. Marcus was 35, worked in finance, wore expensive suits, and had the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. He shook my hand with a grip that was just slightly too firm, holding on just a moment too long. Mr. Harrison, he said, Sarah's told me so much about you. Retired engineer, right? Must be nice, taking it easy. Something about the way he said taking it easy bothered me, but I pushed it aside. Sarah seemed happy, and that was what mattered. Over the next few weeks, I noticed small changes. Sarah stopped cooking dinner. She'd come home late, often with Marcus, and they'd disappear into her room. I started making my own meals, eating alone in the kitchen, while I heard them laughing behind closed doors. Then came the day I couldn't find my keys. I'd set them on the kitchen counter before bed, I was certain of it, but the next morning they were gone. I searched everywhere, growing increasingly frustrated. Finally, I found them in the refrigerator, next to the milk. Dad, Sarah said when I mentioned it, concern crossing her face. You put your keys in the fridge? I must have been distracted while putting away groceries, I said, but I didn't remember putting away any groceries the night before. 2 days later, I couldn't find my wallet. I tore apart my bedroom, checked every jacket pocket. Sarah found it in the bathroom, tucked behind the towels. Dad, are you feeling okay? She asked, her voice soft with worry. This isn't like you. I'm fine, I insisted, just stressed. Maybe you should see someone, she suggested. You know, after Mom. Grief can affect memory. I brushed it off, but a seed of doubt had been planted. The incidents multiplied. My reading glasses disappeared, then reappeared in the kitchen cupboard. I found my wallet in the freezer. Bills, I was certain I'd paid, turned up unpaid. Late notices arriving in the mail. Sarah started keeping a little notebook, documenting each incident. "I'm just worried about you," she said, showing me the list. "Look how often this is happening." Marcus was there more and more, and I noticed the way he and Sarah would exchange glances when I forgot something. Pitying glances. Like I was a child who couldn't be trusted. One evening I overheard them talking in Sarah's room. The walls were thin. "It's getting worse," Sarah said. "He put his phone in the coffee maker yesterday." "How much longer?" That was Marcus. "I don't know. We need it to be convincing. The lawyer said we need documented evidence over at least 3 months." My blood ran cold. I stood in the hallway, barely breathing. "And you're sure about the condo value?" Marcus asked. $900,000 in this market, easily. Dad bought it for $400,000, but Capitol Hill prices have exploded. Once we get him declared incompetent, I can sell it as his guardian. We split the proceeds. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I went back to my room, closed the door, and sat on my bed, shaking. My own daughter. My baby girl, who I'd taught to ride a bike, who'd cried on my shoulder after her first heartbreak, who I'd sent to college, who I'd held at her mother's funeral. She was trying to steal from me. No, worse than steal. She was trying to make me think I was losing my mind. I thought about all those lost items, the ones I was so sure I'd put in the right place. Had she been moving them? Gaslighting me? The word felt dramatic, something from a movie, but that's exactly what this was. I barely slept that night. The next morning, Sarah was unusually chipper. "Dad, I made an appointment for you," she announced over coffee. "Dr. Lisa Park at Seattle General. She's a geriatric psychiatrist. Just a routine cognitive assessment, nothing to worry about." "I don't need—" "Dad," her voice was firm. "Please, for me. I'm scared, okay? I don't want to lose you the way we lost Mom." The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced. If I hadn't heard that conversation last night, I would have been touched by her concern. "Fine," I said. That's how I ended up in that waiting room, with Sarah beside me, when Dr. Park dropped her clipboard and whispered those words, "Don't sign anything today." A nurse called my name. Sarah stood up with me. "I'm sorry, but the initial consultation is with the patient only," the nurse said. "Family members join us later." Sarah's smile tightened. "Oh, but my father sometimes has trouble remembering things. I should be there to help." "Doctor's policy," the nurse said firmly. "He'll be fine." I followed the nurse down a hallway and into a small office. Dr. Park was there, a woman in her mid-40s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a bun. She gestured to a chair. "Mr. Harrison, I'm Dr. Lisa Park. Please, sit." I sat, my hands gripping the armrests. She closed the door and studied me for a moment. "I'm going to ask you some questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that?" I nodded. "Do you know why you're here today?" "My daughter thinks I have memory problems," I said carefully. "And do you?" I took a breath. 2 days ago, I overheard my daughter and her boyfriend discussing a plan to have me declared mentally incompetent so they can take control of my assets. Dr. Park's expression didn't change, but she leaned forward slightly. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the missing items, about Sarah's notebook, about the conversation I'd overheard. The words poured out of me, and with each sentence, I felt both relief and terror. Relief that someone was listening. Terror that maybe I was crazy after all, that I'd imagined the whole thing. When I finished, Dr. Park was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Mr. Harrison, I'm going to give you a standard cognitive assessment. It's called the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, or MoCA. It tests memory, attention, language, and visuospatial skills. Are you willing to take it?" "Yes." The test took about 20 minutes. She asked me to remember words, draw shapes, identify animals, count backwards. Some questions were easy, others required concentration, but nothing felt impossible. When we finished, Dr. Park scored the test. She looked up at me, and I saw something in her eyes. Recognition, understanding. "Mr. Harrison, your score is 28 out of 30. That's well within normal range for your age and education level. You do not have dementia. You do not have Alzheimer's. You do not have any cognitive impairment that I can detect." I felt tears prickling at my eyes. Are you sure? I'm sure. Now let me tell you why I warned you in the waiting room. She leaned back in her chair. This isn't the first time I've seen this situation. Adult children, usually facing financial pressure, trying to have a competent parent declared incompetent. The pattern is always the same. They document incidents, they bring the parent in for evaluation, they have power of attorney documents ready to sign. That's why you said not to sign anything. Exactly. I suspect your daughter has documents in her purse right now. Probably power of attorney forms. Maybe even a petition for guardianship. She'll present them after this appointment. Claim they're just in case. Pressure you to sign while you're emotional and confused. My hands were shaking. What do I do, doctor? Park pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. This is the number for Adult Protective Services. You need to call them. What your daughter is doing is called elder abuse, specifically financial exploitation. It's a crime. She's my daughter, I said, and my voice broke. I know. Dr. Park's voice was gentle. My mother was in a similar situation with my older brother 10 years ago. He convinced her she had dementia, moved her into a care facility, and sold her house. By the time I found out, she'd given up. She died 6 months later, not from disease, but from heartbreak. That's why I do this work now. That's why I noticed the signs with your daughter in the waiting room. What signs? The way she spoke about you. Not to you. About you. Like you weren't there. The condescension. The performative concern. I've seen it too many times. She stood. Now, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you a copy of your test results. These are your legal documents. They prove your competency. Keep them somewhere safe, not in your daughter's apartment. Do you have somewhere you can go? I thought of Emily, my other daughter, in Portland. Good, call her today. But first, we need to handle your daughter. I'm going to bring her in now and give her the results. I want you to watch her reaction carefully. Dr. Park opened the door and called for Sarah. My daughter walked in, Marcus trailing behind her despite the nurse's protests. Miss Harrison, I'm afraid your father doesn't meet the criteria for any cognitive disorder, Dr. Park said, her voice professionally neutral. His test scores are excellent. I watched Sarah's face. For just a moment, just a flash, I saw disappointment. Then it was gone, replaced by a smile. Oh, that's wonderful news. I was so worried. She turned to me. Dad, isn't that great? However, Doctor, Park continued, I do recommend follow-up care. Mr. Harrison has been experiencing stress-related symptoms. I'd like to see him monthly. Of course, Sarah said. Whatever he needs. She pulled a folder from her purse. Actually, while we're here, I had my lawyer draw up some documents. Just power of attorney forms, Dad. In case anything does happen in the future, it would make things so much easier. There it was, exactly as Dr. Park had predicted. I'm not signing anything today, I said quietly. Sarah's smile faltered. Dad, it's just a precaution. I said no. Marcus stepped forward. Mr. Harrison, you're not thinking clearly. These documents are for your protection. Get out of my daughter's way, I said, standing up. Dr. Park, may I have those test results? She handed me an envelope. Of course. And remember what we discussed. I walked out of that office, out of the hospital, with Sarah calling after me. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I took a taxi to a hotel near Pike Place Market, paid cash for a room, and sat on the bed for a long time, staring at the wall. Then I pulled out my phone and called Emily. Dad? She sounded surprised. We talked regularly, but I never called in the middle of a weekday. Emily, I need to tell you something. And I told her everything. The lost items, the conversation I'd overheard, the doctor's appointment, the power of attorney forms. When I finished, there was a long silence. I'm coming to Seattle, Emily said, her voice tight with anger. Tonight. Don't go back to Sarah's apartment. Stay where you are. Emily, you don't have to. Yes, I do. That's not just theft she's planning, Dad. That's abuse. We're calling the police. Emily arrived at 7 that evening, leaving Tom with the kids. She walked into my hotel room, took one look at me, and wrapped me in a hug. I broke down then, sobbing against my daughter's shoulder like a child. I raised her, I said. I taught her right from wrong. How did she become this? I don't know, Dad. Emily's voice was hard. but we're going to fix this. The next morning, we went to the police station. Emily had spent the night researching, printing out information about elder abuse laws in Washington state. We met with a detective named Ramirez. Mr. Harrison, what your daughter has done constitutes criminal conduct, Detective Ramirez said after hearing my story. However, proving it will be challenging. The key will be documenting the gaslighting and showing intent. I have the doctor's assessment, I said, proving I'm competent. That's good. But we need more. We need to prove she was deliberately manipulating you. What if we could catch her in the act? Emily asked. Detective Ramirez leaned forward. What do you have in mind? Here's what we did. With the detective's guidance, I called Sarah. Dad, where are you? I've been so worried. Her voice was frantic, convincing. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I got confused, ended up at a hotel. Can you come get me? Of course. Text me the address. I'll be right there. But I didn't go back to her apartment. Instead, with Detective Ramirez's help, we set up a meeting at a coffee shop. I wore a wire. Sarah arrived within 30 minutes, Marcus beside her. She hugged me tight. Oh, Dad, you scared me so much. Are you feeling okay? I'm fine. Just a little confused lately. That's what I'm worried about. She pulled out the folder again. Dad, please, just sign these. It'll give me peace of mind. If something happens, I can take care of everything for you. What kind of things would you take care of? I asked, the wire recording every word. Oh, bills, medical decisions, the condo. If you can't manage it anymore, I can handle the sale, make sure you're taken care of. The condo is worth a lot now, isn't it? Well, yes, but that's not. She caught herself. Dad, this is about your care, not money. Marcus jumped in. Mr. Harrison, Sarah just wants what's best for you. She's been so stressed, dealing with your memory issues. What memory issues specifically? I asked. Sarah glanced at Marcus. Dad, the keys, the wallet. You left the stove on last week. I don't remember that, I said carefully. Exactly, Sarah pounced on this. That's why we need these documents. You don't remember your own confusion. But what if I'm not confused? I asked quietly. What if someone has been moving my things, making me think I'm losing my mind? Sarah's face went pale. Dad, what are you talking about? I heard you, I said. 2 weeks ago. You and Marcus discussing your plan. How you needed to document my incompetence for 3 months. How you planned to sell my condo and split the money. The color drained completely from Sarah's face. Marcus stood up. This is ridiculous. Sarah, we're leaving. Sit down, Detective Ramirez said, stepping out from where he'd been sitting at a nearby table. He held up his badge. I'm Detective Ramirez, Seattle PD. I've heard everything. Sarah started crying immediately. Dad, I can explain. We're just in so much debt. Marcus's business investment fell through, and I've been covering his rent, and I thought, just temporarily, if we could access some of your money by having me declared incompetent. My voice was shaking. By making me think I was going insane? We weren't really going to go through with it, Sarah said desperately. We just wanted you to sign the POA so we could take out a loan against the condo. We would have paid you back. Marcus said nothing, but his face told a different story. He hadn't planned to pay anything back. Detective Ramirez recorded their statements. Sarah eventually stopped crying and just stared at the table. When we left the coffee shop, she looked at me once. Dad, I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't respond. What was there to say? The legal process took months. Sarah and Marcus were charged with attempted elder abuse and fraud. Dr. Park testified about the common patterns of financial exploitation, about how Sarah's behavior matched those patterns perfectly. I testified about the overheard conversation, about finding my belongings in strange places, only after Marcus started staying over. The most damning evidence came from Sarah's laptop, which police seized with a warrant. They found a document titled Dad's Memory Issues, a detailed log of every incident, every confused moment. But they also found text messages between Sarah and Marcus. Moved his keys to the fridge again. He spent 20 minutes looking for them. Perfect. Add it to the log. This is taking too long. When can we file for guardianship? Lawyer says we need another month of documentation. Be patient. Reading those messages in court, hearing them read aloud by the prosecutor, I felt something break inside me. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was calculated, systematic abuse. The defense argued that Sarah was under financial pressure, that Marcus had manipulated her, that she'd never truly intended to hurt me. But the text told a different story. Sarah had been an active participant, sometimes even the instigator. In the end, Sarah pleaded guilty to attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Marcus, who had prior fraud convictions in California that came to light during the investigation, pleaded guilty to conspiracy and fraud. Sarah received 2 years in prison and 5 years of probation. Marcus got 4 years. Both were ordered to pay restitution, though I knew I'd never see that money. I sold the condo in Capitol Hill. Emily was right. I didn't need that much space, and the memories of that time were tainted now. I bought a smaller place in Portland, close to Emily and her family. I see my grandchildren twice a week. Tom and I built a workshop in their garage where I teach the kids basic engineering principles. We build model bridges, test their weight capacity. The kids love it. Dr. Park and I stay in touch. She invited me to speak at a conference on elder abuse, to share my story. It was terrifying, standing in front of 200 people, admitting that my own daughter had tried to rob me of my dignity and my savings. But afterwards, a dozen people came up to thank me. Some had similar stories. Others were professionals who needed to hear a victim's perspective. You're helping people, Dr. Park told me. More than you know. I think about Sarah sometimes. She writes to me from prison, letters that I don't open. Emily asks if I'll ever forgive her. I don't know. Maybe someday. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean letting someone hurt you again. Emily asked me once why I didn't see the signs earlier. Why I trusted Sarah when she started acting strangely. Because she's my daughter, I said. Because I changed her diapers and taught her to read and walked her down the aisle at her wedding to that first husband, the one before Marcus. Because when you love someone that deeply, you don't want to believe they could hurt you. But she did hurt you, Emily said gently. Yes, she did. I'm 66 now. 2 years have passed since that day in Dr. Park's office. I volunteer 3 days a week at a senior center, helping other elderly people recognize the signs of financial abuse. I carry copies of my cognitive assessment everywhere, almost like a talisman, proof that I'm not crazy, proof that I was the victim, not the problem. Last month, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mr. Harrison? A young woman's voice. My name is Jennifer. I'm Dr. Park's assistant. She wanted me to reach out. We have a patient whose situation is similar to what you experienced. He's terrified, doesn't know who to trust. Dr. Park thought, maybe, if you were willing to talk to him. I'll do it, I said immediately. So now I do this. I meet with people, mostly men my age, who are being manipulated by their children or caregivers. I tell them my story. I tell them about the keys in the refrigerator, about Sarah's fake concern, about the power of attorney forms waiting in her purse. I tell them about Dr. Park's whispered warning. Don't sign anything, I tell them. Get a cognitive assessment from an independent doctor. Document everything. Call Adult Protective Services. You're not crazy. You're being abused. Most of them cry. I usually do too. But then we make a plan. We figure out their next steps. And slowly, they start to believe they're worth protecting. Sarah got out of prison 6 months ago. She sent me a letter through Emily asking if we could meet. I haven't responded yet. Emily says she seems genuinely remorseful, that she's in therapy, that Marcus is out of her life permanently. Maybe I'll meet with her eventually. Maybe I'll even forgive her. But not today. Today, I'm having lunch with my grandchildren, building a model airplane in Tom's garage, living the life Sarah tried to steal from me. And every time I feel that old doubt creep in, wondering if maybe I overreacted, if maybe Sarah deserved another chance, I remember Dr. Park's words in that hospital office. You do not have dementia. You do not have Alzheimer's. You do not have any cognitive impairment. I remember the wire recording of Sarah saying, we just wanted you to sign the POA so we could take out a loan against the condo. I remember Marcus's text. This is taking too long. And I remember that love isn't the same as trust. That being someone's father doesn't obligate me to be their victim. That choosing my own safety and sanity over my daughter's freedom doesn't make me the villain of this story. I'm not the villain. I'm the survivor. And thanks to a psychiatrist who dropped her clipboard at exactly the right moment, who recognized the signs of abuse and chose to intervene, I'm still here to tell this story. If you're reading this, if any of this sounds familiar, if someone is making you doubt your own mind, please listen. You're not crazy. You're not confused. And you don't owe anyone access to your life, your money, or your dignity. Not even your children. Especially not your children.